My cousin called it a freak accident before the EMTs even left the yard. That's how I knew he planned it. He'd wanted the farm since we were kids. Not like a dream, like a claim. Grandpa left it to me because I stayed and did the ugly work, fed cows in sleep, welded gates back together, crawled under the combine with a flashlight clenched in my teeth while everyone else went to town and pretended farming was a background aesthetic. My cousin left at 18 and came back just enough to remind people he made it. Real estate, nice truck, big grin, that clean look like dirt was optional. When Grandpa's will named me, my cousin didn't explode. He went quiet. That was worse. He squeezed my shoulder and told everyone he was happy for me. Then later outside, he hissed that I'd lose it anyway. He said it like a promise. I shoved him off and told him to back the fuck up. And he just smiled like I proved his point. The bin was the one place everybody respected. It had a death in it already. My uncle slipped years back, went under the corn, and they found him too late. I still remember shovels banging and yelling turning into praying, then to sit quiet when they realized it was done. Grandpa made us kids stand by the ladder after, pointed at the hatch, and told us no one goes in alone, ever. Harvest week came late and fast. Rain kept screwing us. Then the forecast finally opened up and I pushed hard. I was tired, pissed, rushing. That's when my cousin called and offered to help. He said it like he cared, but I heard the grin behind it. I said yes anyway, because I needed another set of hands and because I wanted him to see I wasn't some weak charity case Grandpa gifted land to. He showed up in clean boots, and a fresh ball cap like this was a photo op. The sweep auger jammed mid-morning. Not dramatic, just that ugly stutter in the unload, the sound going wrong. I climbed the ladder, popped the hatch, and dust hit my face. I grabbed a broom handle to knock the clump loose and told my cousin to stay by the control panel. He nodded, eyes on his phone like the job was beneath him. I snapped at him to put the damn thing away. He rolled his eyes and said I was tense. Inside the bin, the surface looked solid, but I knew better. I stepped light, felt the crush shift, jab at the clog, broke it up. Kernels slid. I yelled, "Keep it off," more out of habit than fear. The motor kicked on anyway. Not a slow start. A hard, confident hit. The whole bin hummed. I snapped my head toward the hatch and screamed for him to kill it. No answer. The whine climbed higher, like someone leaned into the throttle. The grain under my boots turned loose, rolled, and I dropped to my thighs in a blink. Then my waist. It's not like quicksand in movies. You don't sink gently. The corn grabs you and packs tight. I yanked up, my legs refused, and the grain climbed like it had a mind. The auger's teeth scraped my boot heel, metal on rubber, and I felt the pull, steady and hungry. I screamed until my throat tore. The walls swallowed the sound. All I heard was the machine and my own panic banging around in my skull. I tried to crawl, to swim, to do anything. Every move tightened the trap. My ribs started to feel the pressure. My brain flashed my uncle's funeral, then flashed my cousin's face in the lawyer's office. That flat looked like a door closing. I remember thinking, stupidly clear, he's going to call this an accident and sell my land. Then the safety bar I'd rigged last year caught the jam and sheared the pin. The motor howled one last time and died. Silence hit so hard my ears rang. I didn't think. I dug with both hands like a dog. I scooped corn, threw it behind me, clawed space around my hips. My nails split, fingers bled. I didn't feel it. I got one knee free, then a boot. Then I rolled and crawled to the ladder and hauled myself out, shaking so bad I almost fell back in. I puked right there in the hatchway, corn and bile, choking on dust. When I stumbled down, my cousin was already in the yard with his phone out, panting like he'd run from the house. Switch stuck, he said, too fast. I tried, he was clean. No dust on his boots. No grit on his hands. Nothing. The EMTs asked what happened, and my cousin answered before I could. Freak accident, he said, like he'd picked the headline. I tried to tell them the motor sped up when it should have shut down, but my mouth wouldn't cooperate. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. He kept talking over me, calm, helpful, like he was the hero who almost saved me. After they left, After everybody stopped hovering, I went back to the panel. I opened the box with fingers wrapped in tape and rage. The emergency shutoff had baling wire twisted across it, bypassing it so the big red kill button didn't kill shit. Not a malfunction, not a stuck switch. A choice somebody made with tools and time. The twist marks were fresh, shiny where the insulation got scraped. Somebody had been in there that morning. I took photos until my phone battery dropped. I pulled the wire off and held it in my fist, shaking, wanting to march right over and beat him with it. Instead, I drove to town with corn dust still in my eyebrows and my hands throbbing, and I went straight to the sheriff's office. I dumped the wire and the pictures on his desk. He stared, rubbed his forehead, and asked if I'd been drinking. He asked if I was stressed. He asked if my cousin ever said he'd hurt me. I told him my cousin didn't need to say it. He needed a mistake with no witnesses and a story ready to hand out. The sheriff said unless I saw him do it, it stayed a family dispute. He typed up, "Equipment failure," told me to lock it out, and warned me not to start a fight I couldn't prove. I didn't even make it home before my phone started blowing up. Mom crying, aunties texting, my cousin calling 3 times, then sending a fake soft message asking if I was okay. When I pulled into the yard, he was there, leaning on his truck, acting concerned. I walked right up and shoved the baling wire in his face and asked him what the fuck it was doing on my emergency shutoff. He barely looked at it. He said maybe I did it last season and forgot. He said I work too hard, I don't sleep, I get confused. He said I was embarrassed and looking for someone to blame. I told him to get the fuck off my property. He smiled like he'd been waiting for me to say that. Then he walked away slow, like he owned the gravel under his feet. That night, I went to my mom's for supper because she begged like food could glue this back together. The whole family sat around the table like we were in church, all careful voices and clinking forks. My cousin sat across from me and chewed slow, watching me the way you watch a dog you don't trust. I brought up the wire again, and my mom kicked my shin under the table hard enough to bruise. My aunt said, "Please, not tonight." My cousin's mom cried and said I was sick for saying it. My cousin kept his hands clean, palms up, innocent, and said he only came to help and I was twisting it because I was scared. I said the wire was real, the bypass was real, and I almost died. My aunt told me to stop. My mom started sobbing. My cousin looked at me and whispered that I was making myself look crazy. I shoved my chair back and left with my food untouched. After that, he didn't argue with me anymore. He didn't need to. He just started orbiting. I'd catch his SUV creeping past the bin slow. I'd see him parked by the road some evenings, engine running, like he was counting how many lights were on. He started dropping by with paperwork, buyout numbers, friendly offers, acting like he was rescuing me. One afternoon, he showed up with a notary card on the dash and a pin already uncapped. He said accidents happen, insurance drags, and maybe I should take the money and get out before this place kills you. He said it quiet, close enough I could smell his aftershave over the corn dust. I told him if he came near my panel again, I'd put him in the ground. He didn't argue. He just tapped the papers and said he'd keep them ready for when I came to my senses. I heard from neighbors he'd been asking who was behind on payments, who might fold, who might want out. He'd stop by the co-op and talk loud about land values like he was already counting acres. Every for sale sign that popped up in the county, he'd go look at it, then he'd swing by my place after like he was comparing. I'd watch his eyes track my bins, my sheds, my house, and I'd see hunger, not grief. I changed how I work because I like breathing. I lock out power and keep the key on me. I don't step near a bin without another person on the property, even if it costs me time and makes the elevator guys bitch. I put a cheap camera on the shed and one aimed at the panel. I hate that I have to live like that on my own land. I hate that he can sit at family dinners and smile and nobody flinches because admitting the truth would make them feel stupid for trusting him. I sleep with earplugs out now because the auger keeps running in my head at night. And sometimes, just under the tinnitus, I swear I hear boots on the gravel by the bins, pacing, waiting for another chance to help. We only found his bed because the cat wouldn't stop hissing at the feed room. Old farmhouse, older barn, both mine after my grandparents died. I moved in to save on rent, convinced myself the bumps and taps were pipes, wind age. I set like a fact and kept moving. The animals didn't buy it. The cows refused the far pasture, bunching at the gate and staring into the tall grass like something crouched there. The dog growled at the barn every night right around 2 a.m., low and steady, like he was holding a line. The cat puffed up whenever I slid the side door open, ears flat, spitting at empty air. I blamed coyotes, raccoons, anything with 4 legs. I blame my own nerves. I try to be practical. I check locks twice. I hung a cheap motion light on the barn corner. The next morning, it was aimed up at the sky instead of the doors. Not broken, not stolen, just adjusted. Wind doesn't do that. A few days later, I noticed the padlock on the barn man door hanging wrong. It was through the hasp, but not snapped shut. From a yard, it still looked locked. Somebody wanted it to look locked. I clicked it closed and yanked the door hard anyway, like I could scare the truth back under the boards. The metal held. My stomach didn't. I went stall by stall, slow, listening for anything that didn't match the barn's normal groans. Dust patterns didn't match. There were fresh prints in the chaff, narrow and light, not my boots. A cigarette, but sat by the tack hooks. I don't smoke. Grandpa never did. I pinched it with a glove and felt my face burn. Not even fear yet, just that sick feeling of being handled. I stepped outside and scanned the yard, the road, the tree line. Nothing. Just fields and my house sitting there like it had no opinion. I went back in anyway because anger makes you stupid. In the feed room behind stacked grain bags, I found a gap in the boards just wide enough for a person to squeeze through. The boards looked like an old patch job, but the nails were newer than the rest. My cat appeared in the doorway and started hissing nonstop, eyes locked on the bags like they were alive. The dog barked outside and then went silent, which scared me more than barking. I dragged the bags away, wedged my fingers into the gap, and pulled. The board flexed and squealed. Behind it was darkness and a faint, warm smell that didn't belong in a cold barn. My phone light hit a crawl space. Dirt floor tamped smooth, scuff marks where knees and elbows had rubbed the soil shiny. I didn't call out. I didn't say shit. I crawled on my stomach because I needed proof more than comfort. There was a mattress made from old coats and blankets, a camp stove, 2 little propane cans, a 5-gallon bucket with a lid for a toilet, and cat litter sprinkled on top like whoever did this cared about being tidy. Water, jugs lined up, food wrappers stuffed into a feed sack, a flashlight with fresh batteries. It wasn't a kid hiding for a night. It was a routine. Then I saw the photos. Cheap prints taped to the boards at eye level like a fucked up shrine. Me on the tractor. Me holding guy. Me hanging laundry. Me asleep on the porch swing, mouth open, drool on my cheek. The angles weren't from the driveway. They were from behind the lilacs, from the side yard, from spots I never stood. One photo showed my bedroom window from maybe 10 feet away, curtains open. I was half dressed, back to the glass, totally unaware. I dropped it and gagged. My body did that on its own. I backed out and something clinked above my head. A knife hung on a nail right at the crawl space entrance, blade pointing inward, handle angled down like it was meant to be grabbed fast. Not hidden, not for protection, for convenience, like a tool you reach for without thinking. That was the moment my brain stopped trying to bargain. I slammed the board back up, shoved the grain in front, and stumbled out. The cat stayed near the feed room, still hissing at the bags like he could hold the line by himself. I wrapped chains around the man door until it looked like I was locking up a grave. I padlocked the sliding door. I looped another chain through the feed room handles. I kept locking things because I didn't know what else to do with my hands. I called the sheriff. He showed up late and moved like I was an inconvenience. He walked through the barn, flashed his light around, glanced into the crawl space like it was a nuisance hole in the wall. He asked if anything was stolen. I told him someone stole my privacy and built a damn bedroom in my barn. He shrugged and said squatters happen, told me not to overreact since nothing was taken. I shoved the photos toward him, and he didn't touch them, like my fear was sticky. He didn't bag the cigarette, but he didn't write much down. He told me to change locks and call if you see anyone. I followed the sheriff back to his car and tried to keep my voice level. I told him that there was a knife hung like a damn coat hook, photos of me asleep, and he was acting like it was trash in a ditch. He said, flat, that without a name or a face, it was just a squatter situation. I asked him what I was supposed to do. Wait until the guy got bored and decided to come inside. He told me to get cameras. Like I was ordering pizza, not asking for help. I wanted to shove the trash bag of photos into his hands and make him look, but he already had his door half closed. His tires crunched away, and I stood there in the yard feeling stupid for thinking the badge meant protection. After he drove off, I got so mad I started shaking again. I ripped every photo down and stuffed them into a trash bag. I wanted to burn them, but my hands kept slipping on the lighter. I kept thinking about that knife and the way it was placed, like the motion had been rehearsed. I walked to my bedroom window and stared at it from inside, trying to imagine standing outside with a phone, watching me dress. It made my skin crawl. I called a friend in town and told him the short version because the full version sounded insane even to me. He told me to pack up and come stay with him. I said no because I had animals and because leaving felt like letting some stranger take a victory lap around my grandparents' place. We snapped at each other. He said I was being stubborn. I told him he wasn't the one sleeping alone in a house with doors that didn't stay shut. He went quiet. I hated myself for using that as a weapon, but I also needed him to understand. Before dark, I did a lap through the house. I checked every latch. I jammed a chair under the back doorknob. I left lights on so the yard looked bright enough to shame anyone hiding out there. I kept my phone charged and my keys in my pocket. I kept the dog close because he didn't lie to me. I tried to eat and couldn't. Every creak made my shoulders jump. Sometime after midnight, the dog started that 2 a.m. growl again, but this time it came from inside the house, not the porch. His throat rumbled and then he froze, ears forward. Then every light in the house clicked off at once. Not a flicker, not a storm hiccup, just dead. The fridge stopped. The fan stopped. The microwave clock vanished. My first thought was power line. My second thought landed like a brick. The breaker box sits in the mudroom. I stood there in the dark and listened. The screen door shifted, slow, like it was breathing on its hinges. And I smelled barn hay on air that should have been clean. The dog backed into my leg and trembled. The cat launched up the stairs like he decided the ground floor was already lost. I didn't turn my phone light on full. I kept it low and aimed it at the floor because I didn't want to paint myself in a spotlight. I crept toward the mudroom and kept one hand on the wall because my balance went weird, like my body wanted to fold. The mudroom door stood open. The breaker panel hung down. The switches were flipped clean to OFF, lined up neat. Not tripped, flipped, by a hand. I saw a smear of damp dirt on the linoleum by the threshold, like a heel had dragged. That tiny smear hit me harder than the darkness because it was proof a person stood right there, close enough to touch me if they wanted. That wasn't a power outage. That was a message. I didn't see him. That was worse. I heard a faint scrape near the kitchen, the sound of someone shifting weight to avoid a squeaky board. The dog lunged and barked once, explosive, and something moved fast in the dark. Smooth and controlled, like whoever was knew exactly where to step. The screen door exhaled again. The hay smell faded, not like it drifted away, like it walked away. I didn't chase. I stood there shaking, staring at my own breaker box like it had betrayed me. Dawn came slow and gray. I walked outside and stared at the barn from the yard. The chain still hung tight. The padlocks still sat closed. That didn't comfort me at all. It meant he didn't need the barn to get to me anymore, or he had another way in, or he'd never really left the house in the first place. Whoever had lived out there knew the layout better than I did. I saw the man first in the trail cam, not the field. He stood at the far fence line at 3 a.m., hands in his pockets, facing the house like he'd posed for it. We're 30 minutes from town, no neighbors in walking distance, so anyone on our land at that hour is a problem. I had the camera app open because the dogs have been acting wrong all week, sleeping like rocks, not barking at coyotes, staring at nothing. The clip loaded and there he was, dead still, squared up to the house. Not scanning for a road, not peeing on a post, just watching. I checked the window and saw nothing but dark and the barn silhouette. The porch light made a little puddle of yellow, and everything outside, it looked deep enough to swallow sound. The dogs stayed curled up like idiots. I nudged one with my boot and got a lazy blink. No growl, no ears up, nothing. Like the whole house had agreed to ignore him. I rewound the clip, checked the timestamp, then jumped to the other cameras to see how he got there. Lane cam showed no headlights. Gate cam showed no movement. Yard cam didn't catch a shadow crossing. He just existed on that far view like the night set him there. I kept wondering if he could see the infrared glow, and that was the point. I told myself to call right then, but I could already hear the questions and the sighs, so I locked the back door, kept the feed open, and sat at the kitchen table with my hands wrapped around cold coffee. No more alerts came. That almost felt worse, like he'd shown himself once and didn't need to prove anything after that. Next morning, I found his boot prints in the frost, deep and deliberate, walking the fence, never crossing. They stayed on the outside of the wire, heel to toe, steady spacing. Every so often he stopped, 2 prints side by side, aimed toward the house. It looked like he'd stood there a while, like he was taking his time. I followed the prints from the gate corner down the back line where the ground dips and the fence runs along the trees. He didn't wander toward town. He didn't cut toward the barn. He walked the boundary like he was measuring it. Then the prints faded where the ground hardened and the frost broke. I called the county line around noon. Voicemail. When a deputy called back hours later, he sounded annoyed before I even finished. I told him about the clip and the prints. He asked if I'd actually seen the man with my eyes. I told him the camera is my eyes. He said night footage can be misleading and asked if it could be kids. That word set my teeth on edge. I sent him the video anyway. He said it was hard to tell in infrared. I told him to come out and look at the prints. He said he'd try later if he was in the area. When I asked his name for the report, he sighed like I was being difficult. I worked the place that afternoon like busy hands could turn fear into chores. I tightened the gate chain until the links groaned. I checked the fence posts for fresh scuffs. I moved cameras, porch cam lowered to catch the knob, one aimed at the coop, one on the barn door. I checked locks until my knuckles hurt, then checked them again because the first check didn't settle anything. The dogs acted fine in daylight. Then at night, they dropped into that heavy sleep again, like someone hit a switch. I kept catching myself glaring at them, like they were choosing to be useless on purpose. The second night, I slept in scraps, waking every hour to stare at the feed. Nothing. No alerts. No shape. The quiet felt planned, like he wanted me tired. In the morning, I found one chicken feather stuck to the outside wire of the coop, even though I'd counted birds the night before and none had gotten out. It could have been nothing. It didn't feel like nothing. The third night, the horses blew up. All 3 crashed against their stall doors at once, eyes rolling to the same corner of the barn. The sound yanked me upright, so fast my feet hit the floor before my brain caught up. I ran to the window and saw our back door light glowing way out across the yard. I hadn't turned it on. That light only flips when you hit the mudroom switch. Seeing it on made my stomach twist like somebody had walked through my house and touched my routine on purpose. I threw on boots and ran. The cold bit straight through the soles. The dogs finally got up and followed but stayed behind me, tails down, moving like they didn't want to be first. In the barn, the horses sweated and slammed again, still staring at that empty corner. I swung my flashlight through the stalls and found nothing, then heard it, soft close, the back door knob turning under someone's hand. Slow, steady pressure like whoever was there had all the time in the world. By the time I hit the porch, the knob was still turning. I rammed the deadbolt home so hard the wood popped. He kept turning it anyway, like he wanted me to hear how calm he was. He tested it twice, then scraped metal along the wood right beside the lock. Knife, key, I don't know. It sounded deliberate, like marking a spot, and it went on longer than it needed to scrape, stop, scrape, like he was practicing on my door. I pressed my shoulder into the door and felt this ugly certainty settle in. He was enjoying the fact I was right there, close enough to hear him breathe, and still helpless. I killed the lights and watched from the upstairs window because I didn't want to silhouette myself. After a beat, he stepped back into the edge of the porch light. Same coat as the trail cam. Hands in his pockets, head tilted. He looked up toward the second floor window and whistled, soft like calling a dog. Both my dogs downstairs stood up at the same time. One whined and shook. That whine made me furious because it sounded like they recognized that whistle, like they'd heard it before and didn't want to admit it. I wanted to yell at him through the glass, but I couldn't risk giving him my voice. Then he crossed to the chicken coop and started opening cages. Latches clicked, clean and sure. Chickens iraptid, guin slapping white, feathers popping luose. He didn't grab one and run. He just opened, like he wanted them loose in the dark, like he wanted me to hear them panic, and no, I couldn't fix it fast enough. That snapped me. I grabbed Pa's old shotgun, cracked the door, and fired into the air. He ran, but not far, just into the field, where the light couldn't catch him. I swept my flashlight beam across the grass and hit nothing but fog and frantic birds. The dog stayed glued to my legs, shaking, useless. Then I caught him once more out by the tree line, wringing a chicken's neck in one hand and holding it up toward the house like a fucking gift. He held it there, arms straight, showing me the limp body, letting me understand it wasn't about food. It was about permission. He even turned the dead bird a little slow, making sure I saw the slack neck and the hanging feet. Then he slipped into the trees, and the dark closed behind him like a door. County cops found tracks, feathers, nothing else. The deputy walked around with his light, wrote notes, asked if I'd been having trouble with anyone, like I had a list of people who like turning knobs at 3 a.m. The sheriff showed up later and said probably kids. He kept saying it like a joke that would cool me down. I lost it. I told him kids don't stand on a fence line at 3 a.m. facing a house like they're posing for a camera. Kids don't turn knobs slow and steady. Kids don't scrape metal beside a lock. Kids don't butcher animals to make a point. He told me to calm down and secure my property better, like my locks were the problem and not the man testing them. He wrote trespass on a pad, told me not to fire warning shots again, and left me standing there feeling like I'd just been scolded for calling. After they left, I kept finding small proof I hadn't imagined it. The coop latch bent just right, a fresh scrape by the back door lock where metal kissed the wood, a smear on the porch step like a boot had paused there. I replaced the deadbolt anyway, added a hasp, slid a chair under the knob at night, slept with the shotgun close, and hated myself for needing it. The dog started sleeping in my room, pressed against the door, and sometimes they'd wake up and stare at the corner like something moved there. I still check the trail cams every morning. Some nights the frame just shows the porch empty with the back door light on and the timestamp scratched out.